Well, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Idaho Senator Mike Crapo leading a bipartisan group of senators in a trip to China next week. The lawmakers are reportedly planning to meet with the U.S. business community in Shanghai and also hoping to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. China's foreign ministry says it hopes, quote, the United States will meet halfway and do more things that are conducive to dialogue. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He is General Jack Keane with me once again. General, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here this morning. What are you expecting from this bipartisan trip to China? Do you think they will get to meet with Xi Jinping? And I love the way China keeps saying we'd like the United States to come halfway. What are we up to, like 4 cabinet members that we've sent in a 2-month period? How is that not meeting halfway?
Well, we more than meet them halfway, that's for sure,
exactly.
as you quite rightfully noted. Well, listen, there's nothing wrong with the senators going to China, and hopefully they do get to meet with President Xi. But I hope they're very clear-eyed when they're talking to him. I mean, the reality is that there's bipartisan support in the Senate, where they're coming from, that China is the United States' major security threat. And that was not the case a number of years ago. And I would hope they're very frank with him. The reason why the allies in the region are falling into the arms of the United States, this is South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Australia, the Pacific Islands as well, Vietnam included in that, not an island obviously, but moving closer to the United States. The reason why all of that's happening is because of China's aggression. They're the people that reset the table. It's not the United States' aggression. They built the islands in the South China Sea and then claimed the South China Sea as their own. It's their intimidation of Taiwan and Japan and interfering with the fishing rights of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. All of that has changed the table in the Pacific and reset it in terms of his aggression on our allies. And that is why he looks at us and believes that we're trying to contain him. The truth is, we are, because he's seeking domination of the Indo-Pacific region. And he is the cause of it. I don't think we talk very frankly to him about what is happening and how his aggression, it is his aggression that has changed the security relationship in the Indo-Pacific region. And his threat of war, Maria, he's talked about it time and time again. And he's told his military to be ready by 2027. And if Taiwan doesn't voluntarily, quote, reunify, his word, then they will have to take it by force. That is pretty serious aggression by the Chinese leader. So I hope we have that kind of a discussion with him.
Well, I think you're spot on, General, as usual. I mean, when you just look at the provocations just on America, it's pretty outrageous. I mean, I hope this also comes up with this group of lawmakers. Surveillance program that is only getting more and more specific and embedded in America. I mean, really, we had a surveillance balloon in plain sight for a week hovering across America, taking secrets from our military installations. We've got police stations, Chinese police stations in America. We've got bullying of our ships and our air vessels in international waters and international skies regularly. And how about that fentanyl? The fentanyl flowing into America, killing American citizens, more than 100,000 of them over the last year. The underlying components are made in China. Is anybody going to tell this guy to knock it off?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the penetration of the United States civil society is the most comprehensive in the history of the United States. All of the years during the Cold War pales by comparison by what the Chinese Communist Party is doing every single day, largely through cyber attack, but also those other incidents, and certainly providing the precursor to Mexico and their cartels that develop fentanyl and what it has done in killing people across the entire socioeconomic spectrum of the United States is absolutely outrageous. So it's their behavior that really is causing the problem. And I think at times we're unwilling to directly put it on the table with them. And we've got to do just that. And what they respect, I don't think they respect so much the talking. They respect our strength and our resolve. They do respect the fact that the allies and the United States are getting together in the region in the way that we haven't done in the past. That gets noticed. Increasing our military capability in the region with a sense of urgency. That will get noticed. And certainly doing everything we can to block China from penetrating our society also will get noticed. And the fentanyl thing, we have got to crack down with China on that issue. They can easily stop this if they wanted to. They're doing it. Why? Because they know it's causing huge socioeconomic problems in American society and weakening us. And that's what they want to do. That's intentional.
And unfortunately, we have no evidence of this president taking this on. That is why, one of the reasons why I'm constantly asking, what do they have on Joe Biden? And is he actually compromised? But I want to move on and get your take on the Ukraine issue, General, because the president is now calling on Congress again to pass more Ukraine aid after lawmakers passed that stopgap funding bill this week without additional funding over the weekend for Ukraine. Watch this.
I fully expect the Speaker and the majority of the Republicans in Congress to keep their commitment to secure the passage of the support needed to help Ukraine as it defends itself against Russian aggression and brutality. We are the indispensable nation in the world, and let's begin to act like it. Make sure that American people and our allies and friends around the world know what we are doing and what we intend to do.
Well, General, as you know, people are becoming real frustrated with this because we've got a wide open border here in America. There's not any focus from this administration on that border. They refuse to secure it, and yet we've sent more than $100 billion to Ukraine to secure Ukraine. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan holding a phone call with the head of Ukraine's presidential office to discuss Kyiv's, quote, urgent defense needs. This happened yesterday. The Pentagon says it still has over $5 billion to send weapons and other security assistance to Ukraine, but officials believe that that may only last for a few more months. Why do we have a wide open checkbook here, General?
Well, first of all, the United States can do both. It's a policy decision that this administration has made to have an open border. And hopefully the Congress can do something about that. At least that's what they're looking to do, pass some legislation that's upcoming in the next 45 days, more disaster relief, more funds for the border to help secure it, and also Ukraine funding. I think we can do all of that. I mean, this is the United States of America. Obviously, we have a serious national security threat in having an open border. And we obviously have a threat by Russia in seizing Ukraine and what they intend to do if they're successful, and how that incentivizes their strategic partner, President Xi, in taking Taiwan as well. All of this is related. I don't think we can put our head in the sand and pretend that Russia is not a threat to American security and China is not a threat to American security. Those things are real out there. And the worst possible thing that could happen to us is having a war in Europe as a result of Russia succeeding in Ukraine and they expand, and a war in the Pacific at the same time when China goes for Taiwan. We have a Defense Department that's budgeted to fight one war at a time. That would be a calamity we haven't seen since World War II. We got to face the reality of these threats and look at them clear-eyed, and don't pretend that they're not real. They are real. Yep. Now, can we do both? Can we support Ukraine and also secure the border? You betcha. This is the United States of America. And if the Congress comes together to force the administration to secure our border, that would be a very, very good thing, and also continue to support for Ukraine, in my judgment.
Well, you know, the world has become a lot more dangerous in these last few years, General, and we're so grateful to be able to talk it through with you. Thank you, sir.